Hello, everyone. Today I have a really good friend of mine and a special guest with me, Sandeep Sinha. Sandeep has more than 12 years of work experience in IT industry, working in different roles ranging from a software engineer to a business analyst, a management consultant, and now working as a product owner in healthcare industry. He's building products which are B2B in nature for a global top 10 organization. He's passionate about solving customer problems and mentoring in order to nurture new talent. And because he always wanted to nurture and give his knowledge, he's here to share the same knowledge and experiences with us. So, welcome, Sandeep.
Hey, thanks,
My,
Abhishek.
so my first question, Sandeep, to you is how a typical product owner day looks like.
Okay. So typically, like most of us, I start my day looking my emails. Given we all most of the time works with the global teams, so it becomes more important to kind of keep track of what's happening, and when you are away, what are the things you have to work on. So that's usually the way start my day. And then I get into my idea intake or the requirements intake, as some of the other people say, right? To kind of look at what are the new product requests I'm getting from the other stakeholders, which I need to work upon. So that's kind of my next things where I just go there in the portal and check if there's something new which we have to work on, which could get added to a backlog or the roadmap. And then, depending upon where my teams are located, sometimes I have worked with the co-located teams. In that case, we typically do stand-ups, daily stand-ups in the morning times. But sometimes when we work with the global teams, stand-ups happen in the late in the afternoon or evening times. But all the POs are supposed to be there, so we spend some time in the stand-up. More often than not, we have seen as a PO role, we have supported more than one Scrum team. So we try to do both stand-ups back to back, so that because sometimes the Scrum Masters are common, so that way you can kind of get those done at the same time. So that's my next thing. And then I try to always have like a couple of hours of focus time blocked on my calendar. And this time I typically use for writing user stories, features, doing any analysis work for the new requests which we have received. As you know that most of the product owners spend like a considerable time of the day in the meetings. So you have to block your calendar if you want to get something done in a day. Otherwise, people just tend to take your time, right? And the second half, typically, I would have a lot of one-on-ones, right? I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about a particular day, but during the week, I would try to have one-on-ones with my key stakeholders, which is like a delivery managers or engineering managers. I want to kind of understand if there are any challenges in the product development. Is there anything I can help them with, right? I try to do one-on-ones with my users once a week, just to understand the product which we have for them, how it's working for them. Do they have any kind of feedback? Sometimes when we are trying to launch a new feature, I try to kind of share some information, initial information, to get their feedback on how they're going to receive it. Obviously, we have formal demos and all those things, but as part of just the interaction with my users, I would like to understand what they think about the new features, right? Then we have one-on-ones with the product teams to understand what are our roadmap items, how do we want to schedule it, how do we want to prioritize it, to try to get the inputs from the market, sales, those kind of inputs which typically work with the product teams. And then definitely, last but not the least, the program managers, right? So a lot of time our products which we are developing is part of a larger program, and we have dependencies with the other Scrum teams or other part of the organization. So always would like to stay in touch with the program managers so that we can understand the dependencies. If we need some kind of help from other teams, we can engage them as needed. So yeah, typically at least I have one or two one-on-ones with these stakeholders which are spread across the week, which allows me to kind of stay in touch with my key stakeholders and also allow them to kind of talk to me, right? Normally when you don't talk to them frequency basis, right, you probably may have some kind of escalations and those kind of things. So you may want to be in very close touch with them. And finally, I think some days of the week I spend some time doing a market research, and that's about the product which I'm building, or sometimes the similar products which we typically get competition from, which are not part of your industry, but sometimes you get competition from non-traditional competitors as well. So we'd like to kind of spend at least a couple of days a week to look at what's happening in the market, look at some of the analyst reports and those kind of things.
Thank you very much, Sandeep, for this elaborative answer. As I understood, there are typically two types of meeting that you go through. One is, of course, the workshops, and other uh, are the alignment session. And during this time, as I understood, you have one-to-one. Maybe in the past, because you are co-located or within the same offices, you might have a closed room conversation. But after
Right.
COVID situation, everyone is distributed, even if you are in the same city. So do you see
Right.
any challenges as a product owner that you faced during this time? And if not, how you overcome, and what are the recommendations you could have for the product owner who are used to face meetings?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point, right? It's been a little difficult after COVID to kind of collaborate with the team, at least initially when the situation kind of started. It was new to everyone. We were kind of trying to manage it. And for in next couple of weeks, as kind of situation evolved, people got comfortable with using the remote tools, and they were more productive and collaborative with the remote. So definitely, I try to make sure that I still do my one-on-ones. We try to switch on our videos as much as possible, which allows you to kind of be as a same face-to-face setting. Also, in general, as a best practice, right, we try to send the agenda ahead of time so that people come prepared for the meeting, because you really want to be kind of respectful for everyone's time. So, yeah, I think it was challenging to begin with, but as kind of we progressed into the situation, but right now I think teams are really comfortable. We are able to use our collaboration tools. I think it's working fine now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandeep. So one of the question that typically comes is how to start your career as a product owner. So what are the skills that you think is required in order to start somebody's career as a product owner?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I have obviously played a lot of different roles in past 12 years. And in last 5 or 6 years, when I kind of gotten into the product as a role of a PO, and then now I'm playing a role of a product manager. But really, I think if I were to look back and see, I also made the change at some point of time from a different role to a product role, right? The best way to start off is do some kind of assessment, right? And this assessment is not to tell you that whether you can be a product owner or not product owner, right? But rather, it allows you to understand what are the areas where you have to focus more, right? What are the areas who are really good at it, right? What are your strengths which you can kind of play in very easily, right? So this kind of assessment is very important. I've seen people all the times moving from engineering roles to product roles. Sometimes market facing role, the marketing professionals, they move into the product role. Sometimes design professionals move into product roles, and people have been really successful because, of course, this role requires you to have competencies in the different areas. But obviously, there are a few things which are kind of very critical to this. I'll talk about those. And of course, I mean, there are a lot of other things which you have to be good at to kind of succeed in this role. So when you talk about assessment, I think the first thing is there's a common term which we'll come across is uh, are you good at problem solving, right? And I just want to kind of add some qualifying statement here, right? More often than not, what I've seen in my career and a lot of my colleagues is you are not supposed to solve the problems. You have a team who will help you solve the problems, right? What you should be good at is, can you facilitate a problem solving for someone, right? That's the more important than are you actually good at problem solving, right? So there's a good difference between these two, right? And if you are really good at facilitating those workshops, the meetings, the analysis, the brainstorming, I think you're good there, right? The other thing is just trying to be like very good working with different teams, a lot of different people. As I mentioned in my kind of previous answer, that I work with like 4 or 5 people every day, and then obviously depending upon the product, you may be working with the multiple uh, enterprise level teams for your product, right? So you have to be really good at working with people. I think there's no getting away from that. Uh, more often than not, you would end up working with a large team, with the multiple teams. So you have to be very good at working with other people. The other thing would be understanding your customers, right? Sometimes we call it a customer empathy, because what we need to understand is whatever work we are doing as a part of a as a role of a PO, right? Ultimately, it solves someone's problem, right? And if you don't understand your customers really well, and if you don't try to understand that part, right, it's very difficult to solve a problem if you don't understand it. So, how good is your understanding of your customer is something very important. Uh, Other important thing which I feel is, and you can probably look at in your career and see how you've fared in this area, is influencing without authority. More often than not, your role, uh, where you will be part of a big team, right? You will have a support from engineering, you will have support from product team, finance team, business teams, and a lot of other teams, right? Uh, but they will not be in your same organization as you, right? But you are supposed to kind of drive them, kind of help them move forward, right? So you should be really good at influencing it without having a real authority, as in they are part of your team or reporting to you, because that's where a lot of people I have seen coming in from different roles, they struggle a little bit because in the past they have a team and they're kind of working with the team and they're really good kind of delivering something when it's assigned to them or their team. But when it comes to kind of working with multiple teams where you don't have a lot of authority, right, that becomes very critical how you can influence your decisions. And I think, not to say kind of the last but not the least thing is the very effective communication, right? Um, you are working with so many teams, and you want to make sure that you are communicating very effectively. With the COVID situation, as you mentioned earlier, right? You are working with people on the phone, on the meetings, teleconferencing, and it definitely plays a big role. So that's a kind of assessment piece. But I mean, I'll take a question if you have anything. But I think the next thing I was going to talk about is once you have assessed, what do you do next?
Mhm. Yeah, please go ahead. So I just want to summarize what you just said. So first is introspecting what inside you and realizing whether product owner role is best fit for you or not, irrespective of whether the industry is saying everything goes agile, either fit into Scrum Master, product owner, RTE, or some role or not. So it's really important for an individual to self-assess, and then you have also laid down the parameter beautifully. So for example, you need to be a facilitator. There are people to work along. You need to empathize with customers so that you understand their problem. You have to be influencer even if you are not at the management position. And of course, you need to have a good communication skill, not only to able to understand people, but let them understand your viewpoints as well. So that's I can understand from this assessment point of view, and you have put it very rightly. So thank you very much, and please go ahead with the next section of your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So I think and thanks for summarizing it, right? The next thing is once you have done your assessment and you know where you're good at, what are the things which you want to focus on. I think what I've also seen is it's always easier to get into a product owner or product manager role within your own organization, right? Than kind of trying to look out and go to a new organization. I'm not saying it's not possible. A lot of people have done it, but since you're trying to make a move where you're changing your role, right? It's you have been a part of organization where you have done some good things. People know you for certain things, right? So when you try to take up a new role within the same organization, you don't have to prove yourself as an uh, kind of a individual, right? You're proving your skills in the new role, right? Versus if you go to a new organization, first it's very difficult to kind of crack a role, a product role, if you have not played the role before. But even if you somehow get in, right, you have to prove yourself, and then you have to kind of be there in that role and then do all these things. So I think always try to find, if possible, within the same team or same portfolio or same area which you're working in. If not, in a larger organization, if you have some opportunities you should try to do that. One other thing which people I've seen don't leverage it, but I think that's one of the easiest kind of way to kind of get into this is trying to find a mentor, right? So if you are trying to get into a product owner role, try to find within your organization or outside your organization, within your network, if there are people who are playing a role of a product owner, product manager, right? Talk to them, right? Understand what kind of their feedback is, try to incorporate that feedback and just kind of go through the process. So that would help you more than kind of going through a lot of material online, because it's always easier if you have a mentor, right? And the last thing is the certification, right? Obviously, certifications are not a panacea, right? Where you can just get a certified and get a job kind of thing. But it's more like if you are going to do a certification, it shows the other team where you're going or other organization that you're serious about it, right? You have done your homework, right? So if possible, try to go for some certification if you have not done already, right? Like you have a CSPO, which is kind of, and then you have a SAFE has a POPM, which allows you to kind of gives very basic about what is a PO role. Again, the role changes organization to organization, product to product, but these certification would give you a good foundation grounding on what are the basics, right? And then, of course, you can learn more from your mentors, you can learn from the online material which is available. But yeah.
So thank you very much, Sandeep, for summarizing it. So if you are planning to start your career as a product owner, one of the product owner recommendation is, rather than moving from one organization to another, if you already have built credibility, trust, try to see role in the same organization. Second is, try to find a good mentor that can lead throughout your journey of product owner. And third, in this world, people also ask for external certification. So those certification not only give you knowledge about it, but also build credibility. And that's very well put up in those three dimensions by Sandeep. So, Sandeep, my next question is, do you see any specific skills that a product owner in a healthcare domain require?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm not probably the best person to answer this because all my career I have worked in healthcare. So, I mean, I've done a smaller project here and there, but most of it being in healthcare. But I can tell you from the healthcare point of view, the things which are important. So, one is it's just the industry which you are in, right? You are making a difference in someone's life, right? So the products which you build eventually gets held or used into a setting which is very critical for someone's life or death, right? So you feel good about building these products because I have seen the first product which I built long back, and I saw in one of the hospital when I went in that was being used for patient registration. You feel good about it, right? Because the product is something you built, it's being used. So that's the kind of a broader context about the industry. But some of the other things which I felt over the years is one, um, there's a lot of regulation in this industry, a highly regulated industry. So if you are playing a role of a product owner or product manager, you should try to get yourself familiar with the regulation. So obviously different geographies and countries will have own regulations, but if you are in a playing in European market or US market or APAC, right? Try to understand how it works, what kind of regulations they have there in that area. And the other important thing is the data privacy, right? And that's a big thing. You're dealing with PHI, protected health information, or PII, personally identifiable information, right? And these play a huge role in your product design because if you are not being very careful about this, right, it can lead you to very difficult situations. So you have to be very, very careful with the data, how you are leveraging the data which is publicly available, how are you making your products available to your users, and how are you making sure that the data is always secure, right? So these are some of the things. Of course, these are not very specific to healthcare. I've seen in other industries also some of these factors play important role, but this is from my experience where these things definitely helps you kind of navigate easily.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. So you are not only serving people during your weekdays job where you are building product that saves life, but on a weekend you are also sharing your thoughts and experiences which might change people's life when they actually want to get into product owner role. So thank you very much for this small discussion. And if you would like to have more sessions like this, please feel free to comment in the comment section below. Do like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And we can come up with new ideas, new thoughts, new experiences from different domains as well as we move forward in this journey. But thank you very much, Sandeep, for taking out the time. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks, everyone. Pleasure being here. And hopefully, at least it helps you understand what a PO role looks like and what lies ahead. So, wishing you all the best if you're trying to make a move. Thanks.
Thank you.